Commander Tae-ho sat in his chair on the bridge of the starship Morning Star. The lights were dim, and the soft hum of the engines filled the quiet space. His crew was busy at their stations, checking systems and watching for any signs of trouble in the empty darkness between stars. It had been 3 months since they left Earth. Their mission was simple: patrol the edge of known space and look for anything unusual. Most days were boring. Space was big and mostly empty. But today felt different. "Sir," called Lieutenant Yoon-ji from the communications station. "I'm getting something strange on the long-range sensors." Tae-ho turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, but not from any human ship. The pattern is all wrong." She frowned at her screen, "and it's repeating the same message over and over. Can you clean it up?" Yoon-ji's fingers moved quickly over her controls. Static filled the bridge. Speakers, then slowly cleared. A voice came through, high and musical but filled with fear. "Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. The Keth are coming. Our defenses cannot stop them. We are the Vellani of Velen Prime. If there are any peaceful races who receive this message, please, we do not want to die." The bridge went silent. Even the usual beeping of computers seemed to stop. Tae-ho felt his heart beat faster. This was first contact with an alien race, and they were asking for help. "How far away?" he asked. 2 days, at maximum speed," replied Navigator Jun-ho. Tae-ho stood up and walked to the main screen. Stars dotted the black space ahead of them. Somewhere out there, strangers were afraid and calling for help. He had heard of the Keth from old reports. They were bad news. A race that conquered other worlds and made slaves of anyone they found. "Sir," said Yoon-ji quietly, "should I contact Earth Command?" Tae-ho thought about it. Earth Command would want reports and meetings and long discussions. By the time they decided what to do, these Vellani people might be dead or worse. "Send the message to Command, but tell them we're investigating," he said. "Plot a course for that signal, far away on Velen Prime." Elder Hai-jin stood in the council chamber of voices. The room was made of crystal that caught and held the dim red light of their sun. Around her, other council members sat in floating chairs, their tall, thin bodies wrapped in flowing robes. Hai-jin was old, even for a Vellani. Her skin was so pale it was almost clear, and her large eyes held the wisdom of many years. But today, those eyes were filled with worry. "The message has been broadcasting for 6 hours," reported Counselor Namsu. "No responses yet." "The civilized races will answer," said another council member. "They must." Hai-jin was not so sure. She had heard whispers from trader ships about the violent species that lived on Deathworlds, planets so dangerous that only the strongest and most brutal could survive. Earth was one of those worlds, and humans were said to be the worst of all the Deathworld races. "What if only the Deathworlders answer?" asked young Counselor Kyuri. "What if the humans come?" The chamber fell silent. Every Vellani knew the stories. Humans fought wars that lasted years. They could survive on worlds that would kill a Vellani in minutes. They built weapons that could crack planets and ships that looked like flying weapons, instead of the graceful vessels of civilized races. "Humans do not help others," said Elder Bon-wook. "They take what they want and destroy what they cannot use." But Hai-jin remembered other stories, too. Stories of human ships appearing to help during disasters. Stories of human crews who died saving strangers. She kept these thoughts to herself. On the edge of Vellani space, Captain Da-Un studied the data on her command screen. The indomitable spirit was not as small as Teho's scout ship. It was a heavy cruiser with thick armor and powerful weapons. Behind it flew 5 more human ships, all heading toward the source of the alien distress call. Da-Un was a veteran of the border wars. She had fought pirates and hostile aliens before. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were hard from seeing too much violence, but she had also saved thousands of lives during the colony ship disaster 3 years ago. "Captain," said her tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Wu Bin. "Long-range scans show at least 40 alien ships moving toward the planet. Big ones?" "The Keth? Has to be. Their energy signatures match old intelligence reports." Dr. So Young looked up from her medical station. "The planet shows massive life signs. Billions of beings down there." Dae-Yun nodded. If the Keth were anything like the reports said, those billions would be dead or enslaved within days. She thought about her orders from Earth Command. Avoid contact with unknown aliens. Do not interfere in local conflicts. Return safely. She thought about the scared voice in that message. "All ships," she said into her communicator, "increase speed to maximum. We have people to save." Chief Engineer Min Ho shook his head as he watched the power readings spike. "Captain, the engines aren't designed for this kind of sustained speed. Make them work anyway," Da-Yun replied. In the Marine Bay, Master Sergeant Kyung-Soo was checking his equipment. His soldiers were doing the same, cleaning weapons and checking armor. They all knew they might be flying into a fight against unknown enemies to save unknown aliens. "Sarge," said Corporal Hyun-woo, "why are we doing this? Command didn't order us to help." Kyung-Soo looked at the young Marine. "Because it's the right thing to do." "But they're aliens. We don't know anything about them." "I know they're scared, and asking for help," Kyung-Soo said. "That's enough." Back on Valen Prime, the Council of Voices received their first response. The message was short and in heavily accented galactic standard. "Velani people, this is Captain Da-Un of the Terran ship Indomitable Spirit. We received your call for help. We are coming. Hold on." The council chamber erupted in mixed voices. Some were relieved that anyone had answered. Others were terrified that it was the Deathworlders who responded first. Hye-Jin stood up, and the chamber fell quiet. "They are coming to help us," she said simply. "Whatever they are, whatever we have heard about them, they heard strangers calling for help and decided to come." She looked around at the other council members. "Perhaps we should judge them by their actions, not by rumors." In space, 6 human ships pushed their engines to the breaking point, racing toward a world full of strangers who needed help. Behind them, the Keth fleet grew closer to Valen Prime with each passing hour. The die was cast. Soon the galaxy would see what happened when Deathworlders answered a call for help. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velani space. Captain Da-Un watched her screens as the alien world appeared before them. Valen Prime was beautiful in a way that took her breath away. The planet glowed with soft blues and greens, and she could see cities that looked like they were made of glass and light. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Yun-Soo. "Multiple ships approaching our position." On the main screen, 5 vessels appeared. They looked nothing like human ships. Where human ships were built for war with thick armor and weapon mounts, these alien ships looked like flowers made of metal and crystal. They moved with grace through space, but Da-Un could see they had no heavy weapons. "This is Ambassador Hay-One of the Velani Diplomatic Corps," came a voice over the radio. The words were careful and formal. We We thank you for responding to our call. Da-Yun stood up from her command chair. This is Captain Da-Yun of the Terran vessel Indomitable Spirit. We're here to help however we can. There was a long pause. Then Haewon spoke again, and Da-Yun could hear the nervousness in her voice. Captain, we must be honest. We have heard stories about your people, about humans and their violent ways. We are a peaceful race. Lieutenant Commander Wu Bin looked at Da-Yun with raised eyebrows. The captain held up a hand for silence. Ambassador, we didn't come here to hurt anyone. Your people called for help, and we answered. If you want us to leave, we will. Another pause. No, Haewon said quickly. No, please, we need help. The Keth fleet will arrive in less than 2 days. We need to understand each other first. An hour later, Ambassador Haewon stepped aboard the Indomitable Spirit. The Vellani diplomat was taller than any human, nearly 7 feet, but so thin she looked like she might break if someone touched her too hard. Her skin was pale and seemed to glow slightly in the ship's lights. Her eyes were huge and dark, taking up much of her face. Dr. So Young had scanned the ambassador before. She came aboard. The results were shocking. Vellani bones were hollow like a bird's. Their blood pressure was barely measurable by human standards. Earth's gravity would crush them in minutes. "Welcome aboard," Da-Yun said, keeping her voice gentle. She noticed how the Vellani woman flinched slightly at every sound. The hum of the engines, the beeping of computers, even footsteps in the corridor. "Your ship is very—" Haewon searched for words. "Very solid and loud." "Built for war," Da-Yun admitted. "We'll try to keep the noise down." They sat in the captain's ready room. Haewon moved carefully, like she was afraid of breaking something. Her chair had been specially cushioned to protect her fragile body. "Tell me about the Keth," Da-Yun said. Haewon's large eyes grew even wider with fear. "They are everything we are not. Strong, violent, without mercy. They have conquered 12 civilizations in the past 50 years. When they take a world, they kill anyone who resists and enslave the rest. What do they want with your world? We have technology they desire. Our cities run on pure energy that we can shape and control. To us, it is art and science together. To them, it is a weapon they want to steal." Da-Yun nodded. "What about your defenses?" "We have defense platforms around our world, but they are designed to protect against accidents and space debris. We have never fought a war, Captain. We do not know how." The door chimed, and Intelligence Officer Eugene entered. She carried a data pad with information about the approaching enemy fleet. "The Keth have 43 ships headed this way," Eugene reported. "Heavy cruisers, battleships, and troop transports. They'll outnumber us 7-1. Haewon made a small sound of despair. "Then it is hopeless." "No," Da-Yun said firmly. "It's not hopeless. It's just difficult." The Vellani ambassador stared at her. "How can you be so calm? Your 6 ships against 43? You will all die. And for what? For strangers you do not even know?" Da-Yun thought about that question. "Because you asked for help. Because it's the right thing to do. Because if we don't stop the Keth here, they'll hurt someone else tomorrow. But you barely know us. For all you know, we could be lying about everything. Are you?" "No, but then that's all I need to know." Haewon was quiet for a long moment. "We heard that humans were violent savages who cared only for war and conquest." "We are violent," Da-Yun said honestly. "Earth taught us to be. But we learn to control that violence and use it to protect what matters." Later, in the ship's conference room, the senior officers met with Valani military leaders. Admiral Bora was the closest thing the Valani had to a warrior, but even she looked fragile compared to the humans. Our defense platforms can create energy barriers, Bora explained. They will stop some attacks, but not for long against Keth. Weapons! Engineer Minho studied the technical data. Your energy manipulation is incredible. We've never seen anything like it. You build things to last, said Valani scientist Jae Kyung, looking at the human ship's thick walls and heavy construction. Everything about your technology is designed for survival in harsh conditions. Earth is a harsh world, Minho replied. If something isn't built tough, it breaks. Master Sergeant Kyung-soo was training Valani security forces in the ship's gym. The aliens could barely lift human weapons, and their reaction time was much slower than a human's. But they were trying hard to learn. Why do you push yourselves so hard? Asked Valani Security Chief Dong-soo. Your bodies are already much stronger than ours. Because being strong isn't enough, Kyung-soo replied. You have to be ready when the moment comes. You have to be able to act when people depend on you. But we are not warriors like humans. You don't have to be warriors. You just have to be brave. Meanwhile, young Valani pilot Sungmin was touring the human fighter bay. The small combat ships looked brutal compared to Valani transport craft. Everything had sharp angles and weapon mounts. They look angry, Sungmin said to fighter pilot Jin-ai. Jin-ai laughed. They're tools, not art, but they're good tools. How do you fly something so aggressive? You remember what you're protecting, Jin-ai replied. When I'm in that cockpit, I'm not thinking about fighting. I'm thinking about keeping safe the people who can't fight for themselves. Sungmin thought about that as they walked between the fighters. Is that why you came here? To protect us? That's exactly why we came. In the medical bay, Dr. So Young was working with Valani healers to understand both species biology. The differences were startling. Where humans had thick skin and dense bones, Valani were delicate and light. Where humans ran hot with fast metabolisms, Valani were cool and slow. Your people have been through much violence, observed Valani healer Q-Hee. I can see it in your genetic patterns. Scars from old injuries, signs of stress and conflict. Earth wasn't kind to us, Dr. So Young agreed. We had to become tough to survive. But you also learned to heal. Your medical knowledge is remarkable. We learned to heal because we learned to hurt. You can't fix something if you don't understand how it breaks. As the first day ended, Ambassador Haewon sent a message to the Council of Voices on Velen Prime. They are not what we expected, she reported. Yes, they are violent. Yes, they are dangerous. But that violence is controlled, directed. They are soldiers. But they are soldiers who chose to risk their lives for strangers. Elder Hae-jin received the message in the Crystal Council chamber. Around her, other council members listened with surprise. The human captain could have ignored our call, Haewon continued. Earth Command did not order them to help us. They came because they believed it was right. Whatever else humans are, they are people who answer when someone calls for help. Outside. The chamber windows, the first signs of the approaching Keth fleet, appeared on long-range sensors. 43 ships of war, coming to destroy or enslave every living being on Velen Prime. But between the Keth and the peaceful world, 6 human ships waited. Outgunned and outnumbered, but ready to fight. The Valani were beginning to understand that sometimes it took monsters to fight monsters. And sometimes the monsters were actually heroes The war room aboard the indomitable Spirit was crowded with both humans and Volani. Maps of the Valen system covered the walls, showing planet positions, defense platforms, and the predicted path of the Keth fleet. Captain Da Yun stood at the main table, studying the tactical display. Next to her, Admiral Bora looked tiny and fragile, but her mind was sharp as she explained Volani defensive capabilities. "Our energy barriers can absorb most weapon fire," Bora said, pointing to the orbital platforms around Velan Prime. "But they need time to recharge between attacks." "How much time?" asked Lieutenant Commander Wu Bin. 47 seconds. The humans exchanged glances. In space combat, 47 seconds was forever. "The Keth know this?" Da'un asked. "They have fought us before, in the outer colonies. They learned our weaknesses quickly." Engineer Minho leaned over the table. "What if we could shorten that recharge time?" Volani scientist Jae Kyung shook his head. "The energy systems cannot handle faster cycling. They would overload." "Not with Volani technology," Minho said with a smile. "But maybe with human engineering. We're used to pushing systems past their limits. That could destroy the platforms entirely. Better than letting the Keth destroy them anyway." As the planning continued, Master Sergeant Kyung-soo was in the training bay with Volani security forces. The aliens were learning basic combat tactics, though their delicate bodies made most human fighting techniques impossible. "You cannot fight like humans," Kyung-soo explained to the group. "But you don't need to. You have advantages we don't." Security Chief Dong-soo looked confused. "What advantages? We are weak compared to you. You're fast and you're smart. You know your own world better than any invader, and you can get into places we can't fit." Kyung-soo showed them how to use their natural agility to move quickly through Volani buildings, how to hide and strike when enemies weren't looking, how to protect civilians while human forces drew enemy attention. "This is not honorable combat," complained one young Volani guard. "Honor doesn't matter if everyone you're trying to protect is dead," Kyung-soo replied bluntly. "The Keth don't care about honor. They care about winning." Meanwhile, pilot Sung Min was learning to fly with human fighter squadrons. The human ships were too heavy and powerful for Volani reflexes, but Sung Min could pilot Volani ships in ways that amazed the human pilots. "How do you turn that fast without blacking out?" asked fighter pilot Jin'e as they practiced formations. "We are built for delicate movements," Sung Min replied. "What seems impossible to you feels natural to us, and what we do feels like madness, but effective madness." They were developing new tactics that used both species' strengths. Volani ships would dance around enemies, confusing them and drawing fire. Human fighters would then strike hard and fast while the enemies were distracted. In the medical bay, Dr. So Young was preparing for casualties. She had learned enough about Volani biology to treat their wounds, but she was worried about how fragile they were. Even a minor injury could kill them, she told her medical team. "Their bones break easily, and they don't heal fast like we do." "What about the humans?" asked medical technician Hey-Rin. "If we fight those numbers, we'll have casualties too." "We'll do what we always do. Save everyone we can." The peaceful work was interrupted by an urgent alarm. Communications officer. Yun-Su's voice echoed through the ship. "All senior officers to the bridge. We're receiving a transmission from the Keth fleet." On the bridge's main screen, a face appeared that made even the battle-hardened humans step back. War leader Vexitar was massive, with thick, scaled skin and teeth like knives. His eyes were cold and showed no emotion except hunger for violence. "Volani. Weaklings," Vextar spoke in heavily accented galactic standard. I am war leader Vextar of the Keth Empire. You will surrender immediately and submit to slavery, or we will kill every living thing on your pathetic world. Ambassador Haywan stood straighter, though Da'un could see her hands shaking. War leader, we are a peaceful people. We wish no conflict with the Keth Empire. Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. There is no choice, alien. Submit or die. You have 1 day to decide. And if we refuse, then we will enjoy destroying your cities and hunting your people for sport before we take what we want. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, Da'un could hear Haiwan's rapid breathing. He means it, the Vellani ambassador whispered. Every word. The Keth consider mercy a weakness. They will kill billions for the pleasure of it. Not if we stop them first, Da'un said. That evening, the Vellani Council of Voices met in emergency session. The crystal chamber buzzed with frightened voices as council members debated their options. We should surrender, said Councillor Namsu. Perhaps some of our people will survive as slaves. The Keth do not keep many slaves alive, Elder Hyejin replied. They work them to death within years. But if we fight, we all die anyway. The humans cannot stop 43 ships. Young Councillor Curie stood up. The humans came here knowing they might die. They left their own safe worlds to help strangers. Are we so cowardly that we will not even try to save ourselves? Elder Bonwook shook his head. We are not warriors, child. We are scholars and artists and healers. Violence is not our way. Then maybe it should be, said a new voice. Elder Dong Hyun, the oldest member of the council, had been silent until now. For 3,000 years, we have lived in peace because no one threatened us. Now someone has come to destroy everything we have built. Perhaps it is time to learn that some things are worth fighting for. The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight. All were afraid. Finally, Elder Hyejin called for silence. The humans did not ask us what we wanted before they came to help. They heard strangers in danger and acted. Perhaps we should follow their example. The vote was close, but the decision was made. Velen Prime would fight. The next morning brought terrible news. A small Keth attack force had struck one of the outer stations, a medical facility where Vellani doctors cared for injured space travelers. The station sent a desperate distress call before the signal went dead. Fighter pilot Jin A was in her cockpit before the alarm finished sounding. Behind her flew 3 human fighters and 2 Vellani ships piloted by Sungmin and another volunteer. They found the station badly damaged, but still intact. Keth ships circled it like predators, firing at random to terrorize the survivors inside. There are children on that station, Sungmin said over the radio, his voice tight with anger. Then let's get them out, Jin-A replied. The fight was short, but vicious. The Keth ships were faster and stronger than the small rescue force, but they were not expecting the desperate fury of people protecting children. Jin-A's fighter took heavy damage as she drew enemy fire away from the station. Her ship was burning and losing power when Sungmin's vessel danced around a Keth fighter, giving Jin-A the opening she needed to destroy it. Together, the mixed squadron drove off the attackers and rescued 200 Vellani civilians, including 50 children. When they returned to the fleet, Ambassador Haiwan was waiting in the docking bay. She watched as human medics gently carried wounded Vellani children to the medical bay. Ginny limped past, her face burned from her damaged cockpit, but she stopped to pat one frightened child on the head. "Why?" Haywan asked quietly. "Why would you risk your life for our children?" Ginny looked surprised by the question. "Because they're children. Because they were afraid. Because someone had to." It was such a simple answer, but it changed everything for Haywan. She finally understood what humans were. Not savage monsters, but people who had learned to be strong because they cared about protecting the weak. That night, as the Keth Main fleet drew closer, Ambassador Haywan sent a message to all Volani ships and stations. "Our human allies have shown us something important," she said. "They have shown us that sometimes you must fight not because you love violence, but because you love peace. Tomorrow the Keth will come. They expect us to surrender because we are peaceful. They are wrong. We are peaceful, but we are not cowards. We will stand with our human friends and show the galaxy that even gentle people can be dangerous when they protect what they love." On Valen Prime, millions of Volani watched the message. For the first time in their history, they prepared for war. Not because they wanted to fight, but because they had learned from humans that some things were worth fighting for. In space, the combined fleet made final preparations. 6 human ships and 12 Volani vessels against 43 Keth warships. Tatar, odds were terrible. The enemy was stronger and more experienced. But as Captain Da Yun looked at her mixed crew of humans and Volani working together, she felt something the Keth would never understand. Hope. The Keth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a swarm of metal insects. 43 warships, each one built for destruction. Their hulls were black and covered with weapon ports. They moved in formation, precise and deadly. War leader Vexatar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Harvest. Around him, his officers prepared for what they expected to be an easy victory. The Volani had never fought a real war. It would be over quickly. "War leader," reported his tactical officer. "Long-range scans show 18 ships defending the planet. Most are Volani, but 6 appear to be from an unknown species." Vextar laughed. 18 ships against 43? The Volani have found some allies, but it will not matter. But as the fleets closed distance, something unexpected happened. The human and Volani ships did not form the neat defensive lines that most civilized species used. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random directions. "What are they doing?" asked the tactical officer. Vexatar frowned. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen this kind of formation. "They run like cowards. It does not matter. We will hunt them down one by one." He was wrong. The first attack came from above and below at the same time. Volani ships dancing like leaves in wind, while human fighters struck like hammers. The Keth had expected a traditional battle, not this chaotic swarm of attackers coming. From every direction, Captain Da Yun watched the battle from the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit. Her ship led a group of human vessels in a direct assault on the Keth left flank, while Admiral Bora's Volani ships created confusion with hit-and-run attacks. Enemy cruiser bearing 27 Mark IV, called Lieutenant Commander Wu Bin. "She's trying to get a weapons lock on the Volani ship Crystal Song." "All batteries fire," Da Yun ordered. The human ship's weapons lit up space. Heavy plasma cannons and missile launchers poured destruction into the Keth cruiser's shields. The enemy ship staggered under the assault, but kept fighting. "Their armor is thick," Wu Bin reported. "We're not penetrating." "Then we get closer," Da Yun said grimly. The Indomitable Spirit charged directly at the Keth cruiser. It was a move that no sane captain would make. Getting close to an enemy ship meant both vessels could use all their weapons. Most species tried to fight at long range where they could retreat if things went badly. Humans did not retreat. The two ships hammered each other with everything they had. The human ship's armor was dented and scorched, but it held. The Keth cruiser's shields finally failed, and human weapons tore into its hull. "Enemy ship is venting atmosphere," Wubin reported. "She's pulling back." Meanwhile, fighter pilot Jin Ai led her squadron through the chaos of the main battle. Human and Volani fighters worked together in ways the Keth could not predict. When Keth fighters tried to follow the quick Volani ships, human fighters would appear and destroy them. When Keth ships tried to target the slower human fighters, Volani pilots would distract them with impossible turns and sudden direction changes. "This is madness," Ginny heard over the radio from pilot Sung Min. "How do your people fight like this without crashing into each other?" "Practice," Ginny replied as she dove under a Keth destroyer's weapon range. "Lots and lots of practice." But the battle was taking its toll. The Morning Star, Commander Taeho's scout ship, was badly damaged and limping toward Velan Prime. Two Volani ships had been destroyed, their crews lost in the cold of space. On the surface of Velan Prime, Master Sergeant Kyung-soo was leading combined human and Volani forces in a desperate ground battle. A group of Keth troop ships had broken through the orbital defenses and landed near the capital city. The Keth ground troops were everything the reports had said they would be. Big, strong, and completely without mercy. They shot at anything that moved and seemed to enjoy the destruction they caused. But they had never fought on a world defended by people who knew every street and building. "Team 3, hit them from the east," Kyung-soo spoke into his radio. "Team 5, get those civilians out of the market district." The Volani fighters moved like shadows through their crystal cities. They knew hidden passages and secret ways that no invader could find. They would appear, strike at Keth supply lines, and vanish before the enemy could respond. Security Chief Dong-soo led a group of Volani volunteers in an attack on a Keth command post. The aliens were expecting another human-style frontal assault. Instead, they found Volani fighters dropping from crystal bridges above them and emerging from hidden tunnels below. "We cannot match their strength," Dong-soo told his team. "But we are faster and we know our home. Use that." The ground battle became a nightmare for the Keth. Every building could hide enemies. Every street could be a trap. The Volani had learned from their human allies that you did not need to be stronger than your enemy. You just needed to be smarter and more determined. Back in space, Engineer Min-ho was putting his desperate plan into action. Working with Volani scientist Jae Kyung, they had connected human power systems to Volani energy manipulation technology. "The power flow is beyond normal limits," Jae Kyung warned. "This could destroy both our ships." "Then we better make it count," Min-ho replied. The combined human Volani weapon fired for the first time. A beam of pure energy, guided by Volani control systems and powered by human engineering, struck the Keth flagship directly. Vextar felt his ship shake under the impact. "What was that?" he roared. "Unknown weapon, war leader! Our shields absorbed!" "Most of it, but the power level was incredible. Find that ship and destroy it," but the weapon ship was protected by the entire combined fleet. Every time Keth forces tried to attack it, human and Volani ships would intercept them. Dr. So-young was working frantically in the medical bay. Wounded fighters from both species were brought in constantly. She moved between human marines with blast injuries and Volani pilots with broken bones, trying to save everyone she could. "Doctor," called medical technician Hayrin, "we're running low on medical supplies." "Use whatever we have," So Young replied as she operated on a wounded Vellani fighter. We'll worry about running out when everyone is safe. Vellani healer Q He worked beside her, learning human medical techniques even as she taught the humans about Vellani biology. Your people never give up, Q He observed. Even when hurt badly, they keep fighting. Earth taught us that, So Young said. You don't survive on a death world by quitting when things get hard. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships on both sides were damaged or destroyed. The space around Valen Prime was filled with debris and the bodies of the brave. But slowly, something impossible began to happen. The Keth fleet, which had expected an easy victory, was being fought to a standstill by a force less than half their size. War leader Vextar could not understand it. His ships were stronger. His weapons were more powerful. By every rule of warfare, he knew he should have already won. War leader, his tactical officer reported. We have lost 12 ships. Enemy losses are 7. How is this possible? They are outnumbered. They fight like nothing we have seen before. No formation, no predictable tactics, and they do not retreat even when their ships are heavily damaged. Vextar watched as a human destroyer, burning and venting atmosphere, rammed into one of his cruisers rather than surrender. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. They are insane, he whispered. On the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, Captain Dayun was thinking the same thing about her own people. Her ship was badly damaged, but her crew kept fighting. Around her, other human and Vellani ships were in similar condition, but none of them had given up. Captain, called Communications Officer Yunsu. We're getting a signal from the Keth flagship. On the main screen, War Leader Vextar appeared. His face was no longer confident. For the first time in his career, he was fighting an enemy that refused to break. Human Captain, Vextar said, you fight well, but you cannot win. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick. Dayun stood up from her command chair. Around her, the bridge was filled with smoke and the sparks of damaged systems, but her voice was steady and strong. War Leader, I have a counter-offer. Leave this system now, and we won't destroy the rest of your fleet. Vextar stared at her in disbelief. You are outnumbered. Your ships are damaged. How can you threaten me? Because, Dayun said with a cold smile, you're fighting humans now, and humans don't know how to quit. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Lieutenant Commander Wu Bin looked at his captain with concern. Can we actually win this? He asked quietly. Daun looked at the tactical display. Their losses were heavy, but the Keth had lost more ships than they expected. More importantly, the enemy was starting to make mistakes born of frustration and confusion. Maybe, she said. But win or lose, we're going to make them remember this day. The battle for Valen Prime continued. In space and on the ground, humans and Vellani fought side by side against an enemy that had never known defeat. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when Deathworlders decided to protect something they cared about. The turning point came when War Leader Vextar made his final mistake. Frustrated by the chaotic fighting and heavy losses, he ordered all remaining Keth ships to form up for one massive assault on Valen Prime itself. If we cannot defeat their ships, he roared to his fleet, we will destroy their world. It was exactly what Captain Da-Yun had been waiting for. The moment the Keth fleet grouped together for their attack, the combined human-Vellani weapon was ready. Engineer Min Ho and scientist Jae Kyung had been charging their makeshift superweapon for hours. Human power systems pushed far beyond their limits, feeding energy into Volani manipulation technology that had never been designed for warfare. "Fire!" Dayun ordered. The beam that erupted from their ship was like a star being born. Pure energy, controlled and focused by Volani science and powered by human engineering, struck the center of the Keith formation. The lead ship simply vanished. Others were disabled, their systems overloaded by the massive energy discharge. The proud Keth fleet, which had conquered 12 civilizations, was broken in an instant. But the weapon had a cost. The human ship that fired it was burning from the inside as its power systems overloaded. Sparks flew from every console, and the lights flickered and died. "Evacuate the ship," Minho called to his engineering teams. "The reactor is going critical." But even as they fled the dying vessel, Minho and Jae-kyung were already working together to transfer the weapon technology to other ships. The battle was won, but there might be other wars to fight. On the surface of Valen Prime, Master Sergeant Kyung-soo received word of the space battle's end just as his forces cornered the last group of Keth ground troops. The aliens were trapped in a Volani government building with no hope of escape. "Surrender," Kyung-soo called to them in their own language. "Your fleet is gone. You have no way off this world." The Keth commander, a scarred veteran named Gorth, laughed bitterly. "We do not surrender, human. We die fighting or not at all." "Then you die," said Security Chief Dong-soo, stepping up beside Kyung-soo. "But know that you die because you chose to attack innocent people, not because we wanted to kill you." The final ground battle was short and brutal. When it ended, Gorth lay wounded but alive, captured by human Marines who refused to let him die fighting as he wanted. "Why?" Gorth asked, as Dr. So-young treated his wounds. "Why do you save the life of an enemy?" "Because the fighting is over," she replied simply. "Now we heal." In space, the surviving Keth ships faced a choice they had never expected to make. Their fleet was scattered, their leader's ship disabled, and their ground forces defeated. For the first time in their history, the Keth had lost a war. War leader Vex Tar, wounded and trapped on his powerless flagship, received a transmission from the human fleet. "This is Captain Da-un," came the familiar voice. "War leader, we are prepared to accept your surrender." "Keth do not surrender," Vextar replied, though his voice lacked its earlier strength. "Then what do you call it when your ships stop fighting? And ask for safe passage home?" Vextar was silent. Around him, his bridge crew looked to him for orders. But what orders could he give? His fleet was beaten, his troops defeated. If he continued fighting, his people would die for nothing. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. "Simple. Your ships leave this system and never return. You release any slaves or prisoners you took from previous conquests. And you send word to other Keth fleets that Volani space is under human protection. And if we refuse? Then we finish what you started." It was not a bluff. Vextar could see. The human ships, damaged but still fighting ready, waiting for his answer. He had learned something important about humans. They meant what they said. "Very well," he said, "but this is not surrender. This is strategic withdrawal." "Call it whatever you want," Da-yun replied. "Just leave." 3 days later, the last Keth ship jumped to faster-than-light travel and vanished from Volani space. The war was over. Ambassador Hai Wan stood in the medical bay of the Indomitable Spirit, watching human and Volani medical teams work together to treat the wounded. Soldiers from both species lay side by side, some badly hurt, but all alive. She found Captain Da-un sitting beside the bed of fighter pilot Jin-A, who had been badly burned when her ship was hit during the final battle. "How is she?" Hei-wan asked. "She'll live," Da-un replied. "Might not fly again for a while, but she'll live. She saved many Vellani lives during the fighting. We will not forget." Da-un nodded. "She was just doing her job." "No," Hei-wan said, firmly. "She was doing much more than that." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the mixed medical teams work. Humans and Vellani moved around each other with practiced ease now, no longer strangers but allies who had fought together. "Captain," Hei-wan said finally, "I must ask you something that has been troubling me. Why did you really come here? Your government did not order it. You could have ignored our call and remained safe." Da-un thought about the question. "Do you know what Earth was like before humans reached space?" "I have heard stories, wars, violence, destruction. All true, but also something else. For all our fighting, when disaster struck, earthquakes, floods, fires, people would risk their lives to save strangers. It didn't matter what country they were from or what they looked like. When someone needed help, others would come. Even enemies? Especially enemies sometimes. We learned that our real enemy was never each other. It was the disasters, the cruelty, the suffering. When we finally reached space, we brought that same instinct with us." Hei-wan nodded slowly. "Your people have been shaped by hardship into something unique. You are warriors, but warriors who fight for peace. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs." Later that day, the Council of Voices met in emergency session. The crystal chamber was filled with representatives from across Vellani space, all wanting to understand what had happened and what it meant for their future. Elder Hyojin stood to address the council. "3 days ago, we believed humans were savage Deathworlders who cared only for violence and conquest. We were wrong about the conquest part." Gentle laughter rippled through the chamber. "They are violent," she continued. "They are dangerous, but that violence is turned outward, against those who would harm the innocent. They came to our world not to conquer, but to protect. They fought not for glory, but for strangers they had never met." Young Counselor Q-Ri stood up. "What does this mean for us? Do we become warriors like the humans?" "No," said Elder Dong-hyun. "We remain what we are, scholars, artists, healers. But we also learn from our human friends that some things are worth fighting for. And we make sure that if another call for help comes, we are ready to answer it." The Council voted unanimously to form a permanent alliance with Earth. Trade agreements, shared technology, and mutual defense pacts were signed within days. But more than that, they had learned something about courage from their human rescuers. 6 months later, Captain Da-un was back on patrol near the Galactic Rim when Communications Officer Yun-Su picked up another distress call. This time, it came from a species called the Thylos, whose world was being attacked by raiders. "Should I plot a course?" asked Navigator Junho. "Wait," Da-un said. "Let's see who else answers." Within hours, ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel near the Thylos system. But they weren't all human ships. Admiral Bora's Vellani cruiser. Crystal Dawn appeared first, followed by 3 more Vellani vessels. Their graceful ships had been modified with human-designed armor and weapons, but they still moved with their characteristic elegance. "This is Admiral Bora of the Vellani Defense Fleet," came the transmission. "We received your distress call and are here to help." Da-un smiled. The Villani had learned more than just military tactics from humans. They had learned that sometimes you had to be willing to fight for strangers. The battle that followed was quick and decisive. The raiders had expected to face a weak, peaceful species like the old Villani. Instead, they found Villani ships fighting, with human tactics and human determination. When it was over, the grateful Thylos asked why the Villani had come to help people they had never met. "Because someone taught us that when people call for help, you answer," Bo-Ra replied. Later, as the combined human-Villani fleet prepared to return home, Da-Yun received a message from war leader Vextar. The Keth commander had been true to his word. All Keth raids on civilian targets had stopped, and thousands of slaves had been freed from Keth ships. "Human captain," the message said, "you have done something I thought impossible. You have made the Keth question what strength truly means. Some of my people now say that the strongest warriors are those who fight to protect, rather than to conquer. Change is slow among the Keth, but it has begun. Perhaps one day my people will learn to answer distress calls instead of ignoring them." The message ended with coordinates, the location of a Keth colony that was under attack by an unknown enemy, a request for help from the most unlikely source. Da-Un looked at the coordinates, then at her crew. "Human and Villani officers work side by side on her bridge now, united by shared experience and mutual respect. Navigator, plot a course for those coordinates," she ordered. "All ships, or just the human fleet?" asked Communications Officer Yun Su. "All ships. Let's go show the galaxy what happens when people work together." As the combined fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel,